So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. For those who came in a little later, my name is Bindu Dafina Koloko, and I am a math educator as well as a theater educator. I'm certified to teach math and theater in New York State, and I also develop STEAM curriculum. I like to integrate the arts into math to reach students and make it culturally relevant or culturally responsive, and also build their self-esteem, things of that sort. So you just go to the next slide. So I entitled this presentation Making the Invisible Visible. So it's reiterating the point that, especially in math, I put math minus multicultural references equals white. And that is exactly what happens. The students that I've taught, majority of the students were Black and Hispanic. So I would teach at a class, most of my classes would be about 90% Black, 10% Hispanic, things of that sort. So a lot of times Greek is highlighted. So they equated math with Greek culture when it really was the Greeks who went to Africa, India, elsewhere to learn, and then they came back and took the knowledge that they had and developed. And because, again, as far as like civilization is concerned, when you're the last known civilization or the last dominant civilization, you get to tell a story. So that's why a lot of the contributions of Africa, India, the documentation is there for much of it, but it becomes invisible in our current curriculum. So isolation leads to alienation. If a student doesn't see themselves in the math curriculum, they alienate themselves from it. It's non-relatable, non-contextual. That happens a lot when we're discussing how, even for the number 0. I remember one time I told a student that we use the Arabic number system, Hindu Arabic, and they disagreed with me. And I had to explain it to them. I said, okay, go ahead and Google it. So it helps to teach interdisciplinary teaching, like interdisciplinary learning, so that kids have the context and they can retain the information more. So the goal is to make the invisible visible, touch upon the background and the entrance of students, make the background of the students drive the content. Since this presentation is about Black students, especially when I taught trigonometry, I would highlight Egypt and the fact that the Greek mathematicians were studying in Egypt. And then I mentioned, okay, Euclid of Alexandria. Where's Alexandria? That's in Egypt. So things of that sort. Students are empowered and take ownership of their education, again, when they see themselves. And brain-based learning occurs when you make it culturally relevant or culturally responsive. So the way that the brain works is when we have a memory, we are using all of our senses. So if we need to recover that memory, one thing could spark it, and then the full memory will surface. What happens oftentimes, even in middle school, the students are just learning the content without any context, without learning about what developed these advances in society. So then they just forget. It's like they're learning facts. They're not learning where did these facts come from. You could just show the next picture. And so that's where my point is, that oftentimes when they're learning math, it's in a bubble. It's a complete bubble with no context of how the cultures of the world developed the math that they know, and especially how Africans developed the math that they know. And I just gave some example of statistics here. As far as a lot of the schools in the public schools, proficiency is rather low. So this example was a school in District 16 where the proficiency was 32%, but even statewide it's like 40%. So learning math and learning about the cultural contributions, especially of Africans, as a Black student, it would help tremendously in engaging them and retaining the information. So here is where we have math plus multicultural equals me. So again, I would say this, a lot of times we're using the terminology culturally responsive. I've even heard it this entire year, but the actual curriculum is not culturally responsive. And I put some of the items that I got from Portland University as to what is culturally responsive education. If you see, it says that it challenges racial and cultural stereotypes, prejudices, racism, and other forms of intolerance, being change agents for social justice and academic equity. It's really all in the curriculum. Like, a curriculum has to be developed that is radical in a sense, like really go to the drawing board and say, how can we put the history of our students into our curriculum? And I gave an example here. This is from Engage New York, and this activity was on unit rate. So a lot of times when worksheets are given, it's just like, okay, find the unit rate if this is going, if a car is going this fast, you know, how many miles per hour, if you're comparing it in 2 hours, what will happen? A simple way to make it culturally responsive is to integrate history. So I put the first Black inventor of a car. Well, he was the first Black business owner of a car company in America. So I put the image there just as a reference. That's just a simple way that teachers could, when they have their curriculum and maybe they feel overwhelmed, like, okay, I have so much responsibility for meeting deadlines and standards and things of that sort, just do a simple research, simple search on Google and find someone or something that is relatable to what is being taught so that it can be integrated and students can say, oh, okay, wow, we did that. We did things like that. I didn't even know that you can own a car company and build cars, and you would relate it to rate when you're talking about the speed of cars and even production. You could do something with talking about the production in the car company. So that was just an example. So my activity is related to Mansa Musa, and it's all on the internet where you can select, you'll get the link to the activity, and it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll just go over a few of the slides or the displays that you'll see when you receive the link.